is October 14th, 2025 at 6:35 p.m. Please silence or turn off all electronic devices. And we will do the pledge after closed session. Hopefully we'll have some audience members and we won't think we skipped it. Mrs. Freeman, please call roll.
I would love to. Bianchini. Here. Mardo is absent. Friedland. Here. Grimpy.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Pisser. Here. And Ronstadt.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Awesome. All right, let me entertain a motion and a second to go into full session for the matters of negotiations at 6:36 p.m.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Pfister, second by Bianchini.
We have Johnson. Yes. Grimpy.
Yes.
Ronstadt.
Yes.
Pisser. Yes. Bianchini. Yes. Friedland. Yes. We are in closed session at
6:36.
Yes.
Oh, right.
I'm dressed up today.
You should put it, like, put it in.
Everybody got a change? Nope. Nope. Let me know you are. No rush, there's nobody watching you right now.
Great news, guys. Two-step verification's working. Now everyone was worried. Well, I don't understand that, but I am worried. I'm sorry. That's not a good thing. Right. No, I was like actually super.
You good?
Yes, we're good. They turn the mics off. Nope, still no mics.
Waiting for the mom.
Did you turn them off? Now they're good.
All right, let me entertain a motion and a second to resume in open session at 7:15.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Friedland, second by Pfister. Please call roll.
Yes. Friedland. Yes. Grimpy.
Yes.
Johnson. Yes. Bianchini. Yes. Ronstadt.
Yes.
Pisser. Yes. Back in open session, so 15.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We got a flag in the back of the room.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up is the consent agenda. Looking over the consent agenda, are there any items that a member would like to remove and further discuss, or is there a question of clarification? All right, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda in its entirety, which includes the following: the Board of Education meeting minutes from September 9th, 2025, our personnel report, and actual payrolls, bills, and checks.
Moved. Second.
Second.
Moved by Pfister, second by Bianchini. She beat you.
Friedland,
Yes.
Johnson, motion carries. Oh, sorry, Johnson.
Yeah.
Motion carries, I'm so sorry.
I can leave now if you want.
Oh, we lost it.
I apologize. That's awesome.
Okay, next up is RTDA comments. Who would like to? Welcome.
Good evening. On behalf of the RTA Executive Committee and the entire membership, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and the administration for the excellent ongoing working relationship that we continue to have. As you all know, we've started negotiations already over the past month, and we've gotten a lot done considering. We are now at least a month ahead of 4 years ago. We didn't even start negotiations until November 8th. 4 years ago. And we already have 2 tentative agreements, and our small team met tonight, and we are very excited. Thank you so much for all your time. That we know that it's a volunteer position, Mr. Grimpy, Ms. Friedland, Ms. Johnson. We know that you don't have to do this, and all the board members. This is a volunteer position. You don't get paid for this, and we really appreciate all the time and effort that you put into this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next up is visitors' comments. At this time, I'd like to recommend any members of the audience to approach the board with their comment or question by completing a visitor comment card. Please do note that the board and administration typically does not respond. And if you wish for a response, please provide your name and number or email for a member of the board or administration to get back to you. Speakers are encouraged to limit their time for others to participate. A 3-minute time limit per speaker with an overall 60-minute maximum for visitor comments per our current policy. All right, hearing none, we'll go forward with board communications. And this is an open agenda item for any board member to share what they've been up to in the last month-ish. And Mrs. Fisher's been busy.
I'll start. I actually was on my phone. I wasn't texting. I was like, when did we meet last? And oh my gosh, all the things. I was like scrolling my calendar. So, believe it or not, we last met. We hadn't done open houses yet. So, I attended 2 open houses, Prairie Trails and Euclid. Everybody was in it. I remember everyone's in such a good mood. Happy to be back. I think the long summer helped, but thank you to everyone who organized that. I think they're helpful to parents, but also just a great trying to like get the community and parents in the schools. Then Mrs. Johnson and I attended Village Mount Prospect had a visioning meeting, 5-year planning kind of meeting at RTMS. So we attended that. We had a good turnout. We were like 9 people there. So I thought it was great. There was community members from our neighborhoods. There was business owners, and you basically get a big map, and you get to make a wish list of all the things you want to happen. So most of our stuff was in our area that you could mark up all of Mount Prospect. If you want bikes, if you want community events, if you want art, if you want better water infrastructure.
And I'm going to comment that one of the comments we kept making was fix the driving pattern in Rampers. And now we find out Rampers is for sale. So maybe we should have just kept our mouth shut.
Everything's you wish for comes true. Then 2 great events that I have to thank the IG Fitness fundraiser and Euclid Walkathon. I went to both 2 Fridays in a row. The amount of work that I know goes in from the parent-teacher committees, the teachers, the kids, like the families who donate, like it is really fun, and I'm just so grateful that we get to have this part of our day that we get to kind of go outside and act silly and exercise and have music, and mascot races were amazing. I learned that I think our mascots, some of them have names. I'm not sure all of them do,
No.
but I do have a suggestion. Maybe if the committee and public relations would like to do like a mascot naming contest. I think that could be fun. Chippy, and I think it's Grover the Owl, but I'm not sure the other 2 have names. They could be renamed. I
We
don't know.
don't. Euclid doesn't. I'll think of one and get back to you.
John the Eagle?
Yeah, could be. When I retire.
I thought Albert for the owl.
Oh, yeah. So actually, we just found out today we raised over $5,000 at the walkathon. So we just found out, so we're really happy about that. We really appreciate it and told the kids is thank you for having the parents donate. It's a good event.
That's full. Anybody else?
I know that, Euclid had the, is it, I can't even remember now. It was-
Muffins for moms.
It was donuts with grown-ups, thank you. I can't remember because the first time that I ever went, it was like, yeah, it was something, specific like that, but also fun, and it was, I'm looking at the day off, it was great. So I got to see, all the families, and everybody was super excited, so, that was cool. And then also, I'm like, you're right, it seems like so long ago, but there was also the ice cream social, and that was, equally fun, and just being able to see kids, come back into the building, onto the playground, and so it was just a good time. But again, nice little way to raise money for the PTCs, and I know IG has very similar events, which is great to be able to, raise these funds, to help facilitate different things in the building, to help teachers and to help students in the community. So thank you to all the PTC folk out there.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I got to attend the IG walkathon, or not IG, I'm sorry, Euclid walkathon. It was really a great event, well organized, and love seeing all the kids running around and burning off some energy. And I love the mascot race too. They are definitely Eagles fans. Also went to Prairie Trails curriculum night, so it was fun to see some of the little ones coming into our neighborhoods and our schools, and just being excited about starting school. And it's always good to see all the assessment and all the stuff that goes into just getting to know these kids too. So it's really cool.
Anybody else?
Sorry, I had one more that raised my mind. Not to be forgotten, at least, not last but not least, maybe. Our team has had rec night, and I attended that. That's Friday night. Huge turnout. I want to say it was like over 50% of the students were there. I didn't count. It's over 500. So it was just really fun to watch kids having fun together. They could use their cell phones. They could go around the hallways together. They could get their fingernails painted and play ping pong and have lots of sugar. So the PTC coordinates.
And the last thing I want to bring up is I want to thank the PR committee and the whole board for coming to the ribbon cutting at Indian Grove. It was a great event. We had wonderful weather. We had a fantastic turnout. It was nice to see the village board there, the mayor there. They had very nice things to say. It was just a really well-attended day and well-received day. And it was nice hearing all the nice comments about remodeled Indian Grove as we went into curriculum night there as well. So I was both of those obviously. And I think that's it, unless anybody else has anything to add. All right, we'll move on to district recognition. Maybe you have the floor.
Thank you for coming. I know Mary was a little hesitant to come. She does not like all the recognition, but she very much deserves it. So it's my true honor and privilege to recognize someone who's been nothing short of the backbone of Prairie Trails and a vital part of our district for over 26 years. Mary has been with Prairie Trails since day one, serving as our school secretary from the moment we opened our doors 5 years ago. But her story with this district began long before that. She started as a lunchroom and playground supervisor at Euclid, then became a teaching assistant there, and then a secretary along with me over at Indian Grove. Along the way, she supported generations of students, staff, and families with heart, grace, and unwavering dedication. In addition to her daily responsibilities, Mary has gone above and beyond time and time again. She's been the summer school secretary, keeping things running smoothly during some of the busiest weeks of the year. She's also been a proud and active union representative for our educational support professionals, advocating fiercely and thoughtfully for her colleagues. Here at Prairie Trails, Mary is so much more than just our secretary. She is the face of the school, the welcoming smile at the front desk, the calm and reassuring voice on the phone, the person who knows every student, every parent, every family, and staff member by name. She delivers late students to class, drops off forgotten lunches and snacks and glasses, and helps find subs whenever we're short in our building. She also helps keep us organized and grounded, often in without being asked. Mary, your dedication, professionalism, and kindness has shaped the culture of Prairie Trails in ways that cannot be overstated. You've been the steady hand and the kind heart behind countless successes, and your impact will be felt for years to come. Your shoes will be incredibly hard to fill, and I'm going to be very sad. So on behalf of the entire Prairie Trails community and the district as a whole, we thank you for your decades of service, your leadership, and tireless commitment. I'm not sure what I'm going to do without you, without my right and my left hand every morning when I walk in, but we celebrate you today with deep gratitude, admiration, and respect. Thank you.
Maybe don't take them.
Oh, will that come now? I wasn't sure if we were going right in.
Good evening. All right. Well, so we're excited to come on up and share our school goals and our focus areas. At Prairie Trails, we build strong foundations for lifelong learning. So before we get into our building goals for this year, we wanted to go ahead and shine a spotlight. So tonight we get to shine a spotlight on our two interventionists and the incredible interventions happening here at Prairie Trails. So Amy, Larson, and Ida Rodriguez, they're up here. Come on, ladies. Why not? Usually I get to bring along little chipmunks to our board meetings, but since we're first in line to present, our kiddos haven't even really learned the chipmunk song yet. So I thought I'd bring some adult chipmunks with me tonight instead. So let's start with Amy. Amy's in her 19th year teaching in District 26 and her 21st year in education overall. She's taught pre-K special education and kindergarten at Indian Grove and now provides intervention and support here at Prairie Trails. She did start out teaching kindergarten here as well. Amy holds a master's degree in early childhood education and is endorsed in early childhood education, early childhood special education, English as a second language, and also has her reading specialist endorsement. Fun fact, her undergraduate degree is in anthropology. So she was an anthropologist first, but realized that teaching was her first calling and decided to come into the education side, and we are glad you did. Ida also brings 19 years of experience in the district, but she also has 8 years of teaching at CPS. She started at Euclid teaching kindergarten and bilingual Spanish pre-K. When Prairie Trails opened, she joined our team to teach our bilingual Spanish pre-Kers, and now she serves as our multilingual interventionist. Ida holds a BA in early childhood and special education, as well as a master's in curriculum and instruction with ESL and bilingual endorsements. So as you can see, all these endorsements and all this education they have really helps with the foundation of all the work that we do here at Prairie Trails. Together, Amy and Ida bring dedication, expertise, and heart to every student they support at Prairie Trails. So as we go along talking about, thank you. Okay. So when Prairie Trails opened just 5 years ago, we didn't really have dedicated interventionists. With the board's support, we were able to hire Amy and Ida as our academic interventionists and Ida as our multilingual interventionist. Since then, we've made tremendous progress. Today, our interventionists provide small group, targeted instruction throughout the day, ensuring every child receives the help that they need to thrive. Unlike other buildings, we don't receive incoming data on the students when they arrive. Each year begins truly as a fresh start. Our teams rely on observation, assessment, and close collaboration with classroom teachers to identify each child's strengths, needs, and ensuring support is timely and responsive. Our intervention blocks now run all day. While we previously focused primarily on literacy with math support as well, this year marks an important milestone for Prairie Trails. Students are now receiving targeted interventions in both literacy and math. Amy and Ida spend their day pushing into regular classrooms as well as pulling small groups to address targeted skills. They talk to families, they meet with teachers, and they also assess our kids. So likely you've seen the STAR visual that's up there before. I know it's come in many presentations before me, but it's really a powerful reminder of the strong literacy development that's woven from multiple strands. Our literacy and multilingual interventions strengthen those strands by supporting language comprehension, listening and speaking skills, decoding, and reading comprehension, and helping students build the solid foundation they need for lifelong learning. This past year, we're especially proud to share that a record number of our multilingual learners successfully exited services, a direct result of high-quality instruction, interventions, thoughtful observation, and really consistent teamwork between our team of teachers. Amy and I have built a model of proactive, responsive support that evolves with student needs. Their work ensures interventions are not only targeted, but specific, and also fluid enough to be able to meet the needs of all the kids in our building. Their work ensures that interventions are not only targeted and specific, but also fluid enough, no matter how or where those needs emerge. So thank you for letting us spotlight two of Prairie Trail scientists. You may have the cardio drumming, but so now we get to head into the meat of our building goals this year. So we have our school goals, and then we also have some specific focus areas that we're working on this year specifically at Prairie Trails. So our focus areas, we're looking at program coherence, admin walkthroughs and feedback, and we're looking at peer observations. Looking at our head ready, we're focusing on differentiation, specifically looking at kindergarten math skills, and then our service delivery models, looking at our preschool and kindergarten models. And then on the heart ready side, looking at developmentally appropriate practices, looking at executive functioning, and that's a goal that you'll be hearing probably Bill talk about when he does his presentation, and Karen too, the things that we're looking at as a district, and then also purposeful play. So our first head ready goal this year is improving our foundational skills in math. Similar to our literacy focus last year, our kindergarten math interventions focus on building strong conceptual understanding with flexible and responsive support. Teachers create and work with small groups in the classroom that shift based on ongoing assessments and observations. Our interventionists also work with students in a small group outside the classroom for targeted specific support on the specific foundational skills. Students engage with manipulatives, they play games, they use visuals, and participate in discussions really to make sense of what those mathematical practices and ideas are. We look at instruction and grouping, continuously adjust them based on the data that we're taking, and aligning assessments to help us measure the growth consistently. This approach ensures that every child is developing a strong foundation of math skills. So that's really the goal this year, is we're looking to improve our foundational math skills. So what are foundational math skills, you may ask, right? So there's 5 things that we focus on when we're looking at foundational skills in math, and these align to the state of Illinois math standards for kindergarten. So the first thing we look at is counting and cardinality, and that's really children learning to count, to recognize numbers, to understand that numbers represent different quantities. Then we also focus on operations and algebraic thinking. They begin to solve simple addition and subtraction problems, and they notice different number patterns. We look at base 10. Students start to understand place value by working with ones, tens, leading up to 100. They look at measurement and data, comparing size, measuring objects, looking at graphs, how to organize a lot of the information that they learn every single day. And then geometry, learning to name and describe streets and their different attributes. Together, these areas build a strong foundation for math learning. The academic for math in kindergarten is real. Our focus is on helping every child grow as confident mathematical thinkers.
Hi. Our second head ready goal is with our student services team, who I primarily work with, and how we work with students with IEPs. So as Amy mentioned, unlike the other buildings, we have less of a pulse on incoming students. Through our developmental screenings, we can also get new preschool students every single month. So things are constantly changing here, and our team has to be very flexible and adaptive to meet those needs, foster inclusion, and then make sure every student gets what they need. We're proud to say that the number of preschool general education or typical peer model students has increased this year, about 19%. We've also seen an increase in students with IEPs who need more small group support or self-contained programming. We have more students this year using AAC devices, which at this age takes a lot of modeling and support. One of them is pictured up there. So these changes in our different student groups mean shifting things like our staffing plan and our teacher assistant schedule. It means changing things like our building map and classrooms that teachers work in or are in most of the day. And it means changing the materials we use to meet this really wide variety of needs. We have students who are working on skills that are around a 12-month level and students who are working on skills that are around a 6-year-old level. So kind of what can we do to make sure every student's getting what they need? So working towards this goal, it doesn't happen quickly and it doesn't happen alone. We are collaborating this year with the Euclid self-contained program to make sure that we're planning long range for that alignment of students in our self-contained moving up to Euclid and then the middle school. We also work very closely with our NSSEO coaches, and they help us strengthen our alternative curriculum, so different than what's going on in the regular homeroom. They help us problem solve on specific students who we might need a little bit more guidance with, and they're also helping regular classroom teachers make sure that they can support all students within their homeroom. So we're really proud of the work that we've done so far this year, and we're very proud of our committed team that goes back to the drawing board daily, weekly, just to make sure that students are best supported here at Prairie Trails.
So continuing on, looking at developmentally appropriate practices is our goal for executive functioning. Our executive functioning goals focuses on helping students develop the skills they need to plan, to organize, to self-regulate, and persist through challenges they may encounter on a daily basis. These skills, such as working memory, flexible thinking, and self-control, are critical for school readiness. Research shows that are even more strongly associated with success in school than IQ or entry-level reading and math skills. Really being able to have those basis of executive functioning skills really helps them later in their life. By intentionally supporting executive functioning development in our classrooms, we help children be able to build capacity to follow routines, to manage tasks, to regulate their behavior, and to approach learning being confident. Strengthening these skills early sets the foundation for academic growth and lifelong learning. So you may go ahead and ask yourself, well, what exactly is executive functioning? So executive functioning is pretty much like the boss of your brain. So it helps you plan, it helps you focus, it helps you manage tasks. We're working on building these skills through play, through support with our NSSEO coaches. We do a lot of this through professional development on our Thursday mornings to help really give our kids the basics that they need.
So with that, our second heart rate goal centers around play. And play is the work of a child. And if you don't believe me, you can believe Mr. Rogers. So this is a time when our students are really developing a lot of those executive functioning skills that Amy talked about, along with cognitive skills, social skills, and the communication. So our staff is working very hard to make play purposeful and intentional. We tie this to foundational academic skills and social, emotional outcomes and goals. This is a lot more than just setting out some toys and letting the kids play. This is building very intentional, dramatic play schemes like the lemonade stand you see here. This encourages literacy and math skills. So there's play money, a cash register, opportunities to count plates and utensils and customers. There's a notepad for taking orders, menus with pictures and words, signs and labels. And one part of this really supports a lot of our students' language development. Our preschool has about 40% of our kids as English language learners. So tying a lot of this back to themes and vocabulary is just more ways for them to practice and become English proficient. We have also partnered a lot with families this year. When they see the really neat play things that we're doing, they donate old toys or want to contribute. We tie our family projects back to our theme so that there's talking at home about what's going on in the classroom and connecting with adults at home. Additionally, our teacher assistants are receiving professional development to understand the different levels of play and then meet students at where they're at in the classroom. Sometimes it's intimidating as a teacher assistant to not know really what to do with a kid if they have skills that you've really never kind of worked with before. So it looks like taking the child's lead, asking questions to help extend their ideas, and modeling a lot of the skills that we're working on with the student. Because within the same classroom, we have students who are working on a skill like following an object with their eyes to skills like working with multiple peers to solve problems. So pretty wide range, and we're so grateful for our partnership with the NSSEO and coaching with all of our staff. So while it might all seem like fun and games, our students and our teachers are working very hard every day.
And then finally, as we start to wrap up, we talk about what our focus area and our building focus this year is on deepening instructional leadership by empowering our teachers and administrators, and myself, to lead from within the classroom. So it goes back to our district goal this year, or motto is open the door. So by opening our doors to another and new ideas, we're fostering a culture of reflection, of collaboration, and that continuous improvement cycle in our building. Teachers and related service providers from Prairie Trails, Euclid, and Indian Grove are engaging in meaningful collaboration through Java-like sessions. These partnerships support a seamless continuum of services from pre-K to kindergarten and then to first grade, similar to what Natalie talked about earlier. This helps to ensure alignment and smooth transition and programming for all of our students as they move from grade level to grade level. Regular administrative walkthroughs focus on instructional alignment and student engagement, allowing Natalie and myself to support classroom practices in real time and celebrate a lot of the effective and great things that happen every day in our classrooms at Prairie Trails. Teachers participate in structured peer observations, which we call instructional rounds, to share best practices, to reflect on their own instruction, and to strengthen a culture of professional and personal trust here in our building at Prairie Trails. Together, these efforts create a learning community where everyone, teachers, administrators, and students, continue to grow and learn. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none?
I'm just going to add one thing. I just heard somebody speak about the different generations, and so I often hear about the millennial generation, probably because that's like always the hot topic for people my age. But this Gen Alpha is the kids that are in Prairie Trails and continuing to be born, and so this is a generation, which is not surprising, of young people that are growing up with devices. And the data that I received says they all have devices in their hands by 18 months, which is probably a little bit later than more recent research, but all of their learning is game-based because they have these devices in their hands. And so this whole notion of social behavior learning and play-based learning is essential at this age. So I'm loving to hear the things that you guys are doing really to beat up, and like the lemonade stand. Like, these kids would never have any idea what a lemonade stand is, and so it is so essential for their learning and growth to have these play-based experiences.
Right.
So
It's really looking at having that like explicit teaching of them too, because sometimes
very guided, not just go play, right?
Correct. And
So-
so if you even take a look at any of the classrooms too, you see a lemonade stand, it's a baby nursing level, and everything is labeled and has different shelves and categories for things. So it really works on like keeping a lot of those skills, you know, along with executive functioning and all kind of mirrors together. So
Just wanted to make a comment as well, particularly because this is my world, and just looking at all of this, and just noticing the care and dedication, particularly in many of the pictures and then the tours I've taken of the building, those little things that many times people that are not in early childhood do not recognize, but the way the children are building language, both in their primary language and in English, and having that dialogue both with teachers teachers assistants, and each other forms those relationships that are just priceless, that cannot be learned. Those are hands-on activities, and absolutely those lemonade stands and the stores and the babies are where we do all of our learning. So I just want to give a lot of kudos to those little details we do.
And good or bad, there's probably a lemon stand app that the kids are playing. But in all seriousness, that's really a challenge for this generation, and I know, just raising a Gen Zer is just their social lives are very much on these phones or these devices, and learning that play with each other and that socialization is still such an absolute critical skill in life. So it's just really good to hear all that.
I was gonna ask, with the play-based and then the, I don't know, if they're like, modules or sections, is there anything you're missing? I'm just wondering if I know there are toys added to like the playground, are there things that either the district could provide or maybe families? I'm just thinking of all the like great Melissa and Doug, is there stuff that's posting and already stuff that is well done, right? Is there a list that we could put together? And I don't want to overrun this whole list stuff, but
No, we have all of our themes for the year, and intermittently we put out to families where it's not an expectation at all, but just if you're cleaning out a closet and you see something that would help with our camping unit, toss it our way. Just finding a way to almost recycle things. And we have a lot of families when they're leaving Prairie Trails will donate hand-me-down clothes because we're all pretty much the same size here, and then just play materials that their kids have grown out of. So we don't want to make pressure parents to feel like they have to donate anything, but we put it out every so often. And it's just, think of us the next time you're cleaning out those toys from under your kid's bed.
If you'd like, I could get a copy of that message and send it your guys' way.
I was thinking, probably for all those school, games or, you don't want to overwhelm that there.
Yeah, it would be easy just to add it to the newsletters, just pop it in at the bottom. Here's a list of things that you could, because really we are at that stage where I probably have hundreds of things.
And be careful what you ask for here.
Yeah. No, I
looking for, things or.
Yes, but in the Euclid or in the River Trail.
Yeah, for sure.
Because those are some people are just done with that phase. Not everybody.
One neat thing that we also do is if we do get too much, we save them, we have them set aside for when we notice or parents ask, hey, we really don't have a lot of toys at home, or we need some toys. And so kind of redistributing those so kids do have more than a tablet or a phone at home to play with.
I will say one of the best donations we got was from Donna, our Legos in our office. When Donna was cleaning out her basement, she dropped them off, so. Yeah, played every day. Yeah.
Thank you both for setting the bar so high for the rest of the principals. That's awesome. And thank you, Mary and Amy and Ida. Thank you so much for what you do for our district. Appreciate everything. And next up is Mr. Timmons, who got the sneak peek, and now he knows how high the bar is. Kind of unfair, but
Well, I'm sure Mr. Timmons will say this, but Christy has senior night tonight for her daughter playing volleyball. So she's doing that. So Mr. Timmons is graciously stepped in. Now, typically we bring you fall map data in a preview because we know our state assessment results are coming out shortly. However, Mr. Timmons is going to talk through a lot of the changes that have happened in the last year, and so personally I feel like it's more important for you all to understand the impact of those changes than the scores on the sheets, because these changes influence the scores on the sheets. And so this is not a typical presentation that you would get every fall, but it's because of what has happened to literally almost every assessment that we've taken. So I apologize if that was your intro.
No, I think that was
All right.
a good start.
Go for it.
thank you for your time.
Yes.
Any questions?
When I was doing a quantitative class, one of the professors suggested a book to us called How to Lie with Statistics. And I think that the renorming and recalibration is a really good way to lie about how students are doing with that. So it's important to have this background knowledge going into it before we look into everything that's going to be coming up, because there is a specific lens that we need to keep in mind or look at everything through in order to really see what it's trying to tell us and what the data itself is and is not saying. So that's kind of just my goal tonight is to set that stage for when Christy does come back and present that information later on. We have that done to work through. So our
I think it needs to be turned on.
you are right. There we go. Our objectives tonight are to review some of the district and state assessments that have changed and how we use them to measure growth and achievement, and understand the difference between and the purpose of the renorming and the recalibration that has been going on between these different assessments. And lastly, just to understand the impacts of that renorming and recalibration and what that means for us moving forward. So starting with a quick just recap of the assessments that we use that we're talking about. There are 5 different assessments that have gone through some kind of change or update for us for this year. 2 of them are ones that we choose to give, the NWEA MAP and the Ames Web Plus, both measure growth and proficiency in literacy and math. And those are both given multiple times throughout the year. 3 of them are state assessments that we have to give. The 5 Essential Survey measures our building culture, and the Illinois Assessment of Readiness and the Illinois Science Assessment are one-time-a-year state assessments. Illinois Assessment of Readiness is also literacy and math. Science assessment is obviously science. That is looking at proficiency and growth in those areas throughout the year or over the years. So all of them have had or will have modifications that change the way we look at and analyze the data that we get from them. The thing that's not changing is how we use the assessments. We still see assessment as informing our impact and informing our next steps when it comes to student learning. That's not changing. We use them to monitor progress over time. We use them to communicate progress to stakeholders. All of that can still happen regardless of the changes that have been going on. This year is different because some of the assessments have re-normed, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that means, and then others have recalibrated, which is slightly different, and I have some definitions on the bottom that kind of describe the difference between those two. Renorming means that they've recalculated the averages based on most recent performance of students, either nationwide or throughout the state. The recalibrating is just adjusting the system that they use to communicate the results to more accurately or more consistently share what they are. So renorming. 3 of our assessments got renormed. The measures of academic progress, the MAP, the Ames Web Plus, and the 5 essentials. When we talk about norms, we are talking about percentiles that accompany a raw data store. These percentile norms provide a national comparison that helps transform the numbers that we get into something that we can use. Pediatrics is a really common example of how using norming allows us to make sense of the information that we get when we have doctor's appointments for our kids. They give us a number, but they also give us the percentile so we can know where does my kid fit in across the nation. What is that normal for a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, whatever it is. That number itself doesn't mean much without some context so that we can see how it compares and where we are. The same is true for assessment data. The norms allow us to see how our students compare to the thousands of other students that are in the same grade or taking an assessment in the same subject, or that have received the same amount of instruction in the school year. These norms help us provide context, but that context changes over time. Norms get updates because student performance changes over time. If you think of it kind of like using Google Street View or Google Maps, you're still navigating the same streets, but if you're using the map that's 5 or 10 years old, you're not seeing what the landscape looks like right now. The example that we have up here is of this building, Prairie Trails.
This past year, my wife's school district opened up their own kindergarten center, and as they were preparing, I had connected the principal there with Amy so that she could get insight into what that process was like, shifting, opening up a new building in the district. If I had shown her pictures of Prairie Trails as it existed in 2019, I don't think she would have been as impressed as if we showed her what it looks like now. So, looking at the map assessment, the picture on the screen shows how the distribution has shifted from the 2020 norms, which is the taller of the two, to the 2025 norms. It's gotten a little bit wider, especially on the low end on the left, and a little bit flatter. It's important to note here that the rigor of the test and the test questions themselves did not change, but the students who are taking the assessment have. If we look to that example on the right up there, if a student had a score of 238, the 2020 norms would place them at the 45th percentile nationally, meaning they were performing better or equal to 45% of the students nationwide. If we take that same data, the same test, same student, same question, same score, and apply that to the 2025 norms, that student's now scoring at the 60th percentile. Nothing's changed except the comparison group. Nationally, students now aren't performing at the same levels as they were when the previous norms were set in 2020 using data from 2017-2018. And I think that they're starting to see that nationwide. There was a news report that came out today about the NAEP and the map data that NWE is releasing, and they're seeing that across the nation, U.S. students are scoring slightly higher in math, closing a little bit of gap, but the reading scores are staying stagnant. In Ames Web, we see something similar in literacy. They only renormed one part of their assessment, just the literacy, not the math. The Ames Web assessment impacts the tiered information that we use to help us inform areas of possible intervention. So the tiers are represented by the triangles on the bottom. Tier 1, where we expect the majority of the students to be, is represented by that green portion. Students that fall in the Tier 2 range would be in yellow. Those students are eligible for some additional intervention support. And Tier 3, represented in the red, are the most at-risk students that need the most additional support. The distribution that we see on the left between the three tiers is what we typically see for first grade students in the fall. However, with the updated norms, the image on the right is what we're seeing now, which is typically what we see at the end of the school year. This isn't to say that the students are doing any better now than they were last fall. Their scores are the same or similar to they were last year, but the comparison group changed, which is making them look better. The last renorming that we have here is with the Illinois 5 Essential Survey. This is something that's given every year in February to staff, students, and to parents. This one was a really interesting one because we did an admin academy over the summer for this one, so all of the admin had a chance to kind of dig into a little bit of history from this assessment and where the information was coming from originally, and it was kind of shocking to all of us that the norm data that we've been compared to for the past 12 years was only from Chicago Public Schools and only from 2013. So we're comparing the culture of our building to only CPS schools in 2013. They finally updated that. Now they're using statewide averages from last year, from 2024. The caveat that the presenters gave us that day is it's important to know these things and how they change, because if you don't know what you're looking at, these changes can be interpreted as either losses or gains, and really it's not what it is. It's just rethinking or reanalyzing the landscape to make it more accurate. So what you can see is kind of an example of how the same data changed with the norms again. So if we took, this is the Indian Grove data from 2024. The original data that I had showed 3 areas in the neutral, 1 area in the green as being marked as strong, and 1 area in the orange, which is weak. After the norms, everything got pulled into that neutral. So what they saw as they renormed was that the extreme scores, those that were on the lower end and the higher end, had the most movement, and a lot of stuff ended up going to the middle, regressing to the middle. The other piece that we're dealing with right now is a recalibration of the statewide assessments. The Illinois Assessment of Readiness and the Illinois Science Assessment. If you think back, way back in the days of ISAT, if you look at our proficiency rates as a state in those times, from about 2024 to 2012, 80% of the state was regularly considered to be proficient, 80% of the students. In 2013 was their first recalibration, and they made it much harder. They raised the benchmark. So then we were seeing typically between 50 and 60% of students were regularly considered proficient. In 2017, the state switched to the SAT. And when they did that, they set their benchmarks far above what the College Board of College Readiness scores called for in terms of their benchmarks. The state then took all of the benchmarks for grades 3 through 8 and aligned them with these higher high school benchmarks. So that pulled everybody in the state up, essentially. So now it's switching back because the state is switching away from SAT again and going back to ACT. Just a carousel. Before we go into those benchmarks itself, I think it's important to distinguish between a couple of the words that they use pretty frequently: performance and proficiency. So the performance levels are the names of the actual levels themselves. So the ones up on the screen, above proficient, proficient, approaching proficient, and below proficient are the performance levels. The state decides how many levels are going to be and what the cut scores are between each level. In the case up here, the proficiency benchmark is right in the middle. So anything above that proficiency benchmark in the green is considered proficient. Anything below the proficiency benchmark in the orange is not proficient. Proficiency means that a student is on track with their learning. But being on track doesn't necessarily mean that they've mastered all the grade level standards. It just means that they're on track to do that eventually. Proficiency itself is a policy construct that compares a student's performance to a fixed aspirational standard that the state makes up. The idea of being at grade level is more of like that observable empirical construct that compares a student's performance to what's typical for a particular grade level. So those benchmarks that they set in 2017 there's been a pretty serious misalignment between the proficiency benchmarks in Illinois and actual student performance. Illinois has some of the most restrictive proficiency benchmarks in the country for ELA and math. The chart up on the screen is something that NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is the only assessment that's currently taken nationwide, puts out every couple of years. It shows the estimated score that a 4th grade student would need to have to be proficient in math on their local state assessment. So if you look at the chart up here, it's harder for students in Illinois to be considered proficient on the Illinois state assessment than any other state in the country. Illinois is all the way at the top and all the way to the right. In other areas that NAEP measures, which is 4th grade reading, 8th grade math, and 8th grade reading, Illinois benchmarks consistently rank in the top 4. So let's take a look to see how the proficiency benchmarks are changing themselves. Starting all the way to the right with the science, because this one's pretty straightforward. The science benchmarks are actually set too low. The U.S. Department of Education denied the state's request to delay setting science performance standards during COVID. So that forced ISB to have to use 2021 data to set their science benchmarks. That year, the data had insufficient student participation and insufficient representation, so the result was misaligned performance levels. The realignment of the proficiency benchmarks is consistent in science with 5th and with 8th grade, meaning that the old score and the new score both changed the same amount. It went from 799 to 812 on both. So now a student has to score 812 in order to be considered proficient in science in both 5th and 8th grade. On the other hand, the ELA and math standards were set too high. Adjustments weren't consistent either, which creates variability in the rigor between the grade levels and subject areas. We're not sure why this was done, and we would love to be able to dig deeper and get more answers for you, but I unfortunately don't have those at the moment. The goal was to align the proficiency levels in each grade level to the grade level above it, which should also then align to the ACT proficiency benchmarks and the college and career ready expectations. So you can see in 3rd grade, cut scores went from a 750 to a 735 in ELA, but in 8th grade, it only went from 750 to 745. Again, no reason was given about why there was a difference in that. So what does that mean for this year's data? Generally, we can expect to see 2025 proficiency rates higher in ELA and math and lower in science. Math and ELA proficiency benchmarks are going down, science proficiency benchmarks are going up. But because those shifts in cut scores aren't equal, the changes to proficiency look different in each group, in different grade levels. If we take the math example on the screen, we're looking at 2024 statewide data that's been recalibrated with the 2025 standards. We can see that the changes to proficiency benchmarks were not as dramatic in the older grades. So students in 7th and 8th grade are being held to a higher standard of proficiency than students in the earlier grades. Most districts are going to see a steady drop in math proficiency in grades 3 to grade 8 that's unrelated to student, school, or district performance. Those kids are just being held to a significantly higher standard than the younger grades are. So that means that we have to avoid making the quick assumption that 8th graders are doing worse than 3rd graders. This data shows that point in a different way. This chart shows where a student would have to perform nationally to be considered proficient at each grade level under the new benchmarks. So we can see how the rigor of the math benchmarks in blue are significantly higher of the rigor of the ELA benchmarks in orange, but especially so when you look at 8th grade. Because those ELA benchmarks are slightly lower, we can expect most districts to show significantly higher proficiency in ELA compared to math, despite the fact that both of them are equally competitive compared to in the state and across the nation. Again, here we don't have the 2025 data available to us yet, but we can glimpse at what it might look like by applying the 2024 data to the new 2025 benchmarks. The last piece that we have is the performance levels. The recalibration to make the levels more consistent and to make the naming conventions more consistent, to add clarity and coherence between the different assessment systems. Whereas previously IAR and ISA kind of each did their own thing. You can see IAR had 5 different proficiency levels, performance levels, and ISA had 4. Now there's alignment between the two. It's the same amount, the same number, the same names to help us better understand the results. So the implications that this has for districts, they're has been significant changes to all of the things that we use to measure our impact and to measure student growth. But that focus on growth is what keeps us on the right track. That it's imperative to keep looking at how our students are changing throughout the years and growing as a result of what we're doing with them. The other important thing to keep in mind is how we communicate this to all of our stakeholders, all the parents, all the families, because when we send home reports in a couple of weeks, we want to make sure that they're looking at it through this lens too, without it being so technical that it drowns out the message. So that's something that we're working on right now. We do have a message drafted. NWA did share a really nice clear video clip also that we're sending. That's something that could help explain that a little bit better, or a little bit to the families as well. That's set to go out on Friday, which leads us into our next steps. We really want to continue to monitor and adjust how this has impacted how we make our decisions with the data. I think specifically looking at interventions and placements. For years, we've built systems and staffing models and decision-making matrices, basically, around these norms that haven't changed this much in years. So we need to continue to have those conversations about how this impacts all of those things. And then making sure that we continue to provide staff training on how to use the data that we are seeing now. And then preparing that parent communication, that first one that's going out on Friday. In closing, I think it's important to reiterate that we are committed to using data to drive instruction and measure growth. Again, we see assessment as informing our impact and informing our next steps. We're committed to developing a deep understanding of how to responsibly use this information that we have. And we understand the importance of aligning assessment with today's learning context. Our goal is to continue to utilize it and to put it in place in a way that is out in front in terms of clarity and transparency, so that everybody does have a clear message about how it is.
Anybody have any questions? Martin?
Love the report. This is my type of report. I understand recalibration. Someone has the state. Someone has gone in and rejiggered all of the numbers and tweaked stuff. Who's doing that with the norming? Who's setting the norming? Who said, okay, we're going to change the bell curve from this to this flat?
So it's the companies themselves. NWEA is the company that does everything for the MAP test. Their latest sample, I think, I had the numbers up before. They did say that this latest norming, which was using 2022, 23, and 23, 24 data, was one of their largest samples and most robust samples for their norms that they've used in a long time. It was something along the lines of like 13 million students across the country, all 50 states were represented. They do their norms for their test. So they're doing the norms for the MAP test. The Ames Web is Pearson, so they're in charge of the norms. Oh yeah, they're in charge of creating the norms and doing that for theirs.
Doesn't Pearson also do the ACT test? Aren't they the ones who formulate?
Yes.
Yes,
They are.
Good over
They
Pearson.
do.
Okay. So then and then toward the end, you were talking about growth, and that we will monitor growth, and that's what we should be looking at for the students, just their growth. But the way you're measuring their growth is against one of these numbers, whether it's the norm or the recalibration. So, as a parent, I'm going to look at it and say, you're changing it on me.
In terms of the like for MAP, the MAP test, that raw score, the RIT score is what we call it,
Right.
or what they call it. That has not changed. So the RIT scores and how they determine that RIT score hasn't changed. The percentile of that score and how it compares to kids nationally, that's what changed. So if we're looking at the raw score and looking at the growth of the raw score, that we can still get information about. Some of them have re-normed for us last year's data so that we can get at least a 2-year growth picture. But that's about as far back as we can go with any of these. We lost a lot of longitudinal data with the re-norming.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can go back, we can look at, this map did go back and re-norm last year's data for us, so we can look at last year compared to this year with the new norms, but past that, we don't have anything, so this is basically a baseline.
Well, I'm gonna tell you that as a parent who's had 3 kids go through this education system, even my husband, when we got that printout of where the kids fell, he was like, are they getting an A or a B and are they passing?
Yeah.
That's, whatever these numbers are, I doubt that most of the parents in our community understand or even want to understand, because as long as the child is doing well in school and moving on, everything's okay.
Yeah, and that's the information that the percentile helps us with, usually,
Okay.
yeah.
And then my last question, on the Ames Web Plus, on that triangle where the tier 1, 2, and 3, I'm trying to understand how the children that fall in the tier 3 at the very top of the red. So last year, let's say there were 10 kids who were up there in that red triangle. And then in fall 2025, wow, they're not there anymore. So are you saying they grew or they just, I don't know.
No, percentile shift.
Well, I realize the percentile, yeah,
So
so
that's
that's,
bumped them into
that's just the number.
Yeah.
Doesn't the kid still need intervention?
And those are the conversations that we're having right now, because the number of words that they can read as they're doing the oral reading fluency hasn't changed.
Right.
Yeah. So the need is still there. This data is showing that compared to kids nationwide, they are scoring higher, but that need is still there for those kids.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is exactly why we brought this to you guys, and then get it, it's deep, so I apologize, but,
Yeah.
when you see our district test scores, I don't want you to be like, oh, they're all gifted. They've all just grown 20%, we're doing great. Because you need to understand the background of it. The needs are still the needs, even though they're in the green, we're not like, hey, woo, we're great.
That's what I'm afraid would
And
happen.
so, the examples up there, a kid shifts from 45th to the 60th percentile. We are not gonna then put kids in accelerated because they've shifted on a percentile. Like, so we all we're being very thoughtful, we're educating ourselves so that when it comes to these decisions, we're not making mistakes based on these shifting in norms. So again, I know it's deep, but it doesn't mean that things have changed with our kids and our approaches haven't changed. But you are going to see very different profiles and not the longitudinal data that we would love to show. We could show it, but you're going to see some spikes and some dips potentially. So that is like the really neat of understanding as we continue to move through the school year with a lot of this. And you did hear Tony Sanders talk at our division meeting, I think it was 2 years ago now. He has been on this, like, tackling this state assessment system train for a while, so I knew it was coming.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your great explanation too and the visuals. I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I think my question was related to the chart, like this chart. So, like, context matters, as you stated. So, like, a tool is just a tool. It's you're measuring 100 other data points about kids in classrooms. And I guess my question is, like, this chart, it looks great, but it kind of means nothing now, right? Like, we have the raw data that's like, oh, we're doing a great job. So I know you guys are working through, like, is there options, probably not in these big test groups, to get different
subgroups of data. Like this is the national data. Can we get it on a state data, on a regional data? Can we share with districts around us so we know how we're like some context about like zooming in a little bit to the data that matters most to us. And then I have the question about the Donna, like we still have the raw scores. Like that didn't change, so you can track that.
And quite honestly, I would say when the buildings talk about their data digs, that's exactly what they're doing here. They're picking apart these triangles in the bar, you know, the bell curves. They're looking at the numbers in people's classes, the subgroups, the kids with IEPs, kids with not with IEPs, kids in intervention. So when they talk about those data digs, yes, you're absolutely right. Like this is just a quick assumption, but you really have to dig into that, and the teachers have to dig into that to know what to do with those numbers. It's like, so what?
And that's kind of what I was saying before. We're having conversations now specifically about, in the past, the thing that typically had triggered intervention services was being at the 25th percentile and below. That doesn't make any sense anymore because we're not getting kids there. That they're not they're showing that they're not there, even though those kids haven't changed, their needs haven't changed. But now our identification process needs to change or update it to make sure that we're still meeting the kids and their needs without just saying flatly, this is what it is.
But I think part of the story that you told here is that unfortunately the national scores are falling backwards. And as we continue to grow, I mean, if we're on a perpetual growth path, we're going to continue to pull away from the pack or the norm, if you will. So, you know, looking at a chart like that, you know, like you said, that, you know, whatever percentage you identify as needing some kind of intervention, you know, comparing it to the national scores doesn't really work for us. That we're going to have to look at what cohorts of our kids need those intervention services and almost kind of customize that based on those needs.
Yeah.
But I got another question. When you show us data going forward, are we going to take this into account? Like, are we going to see this? Should we expect to see this spike just in terms of proficiency, or are we going to focus on the test score? Because that doesn't sound like it really changed.
Yeah, I think that'll be part of the conversation that we have too as principals and as we have with Jody and Christy. What's the most important stuff that makes sense to present that shows what we're doing, and what are the things that are best aligned to show what we're doing?
Yeah, and I think they're both important, and it's good to know where we stand nationally and as a state or a region, but it's more important, like you said, that we show continued year-over-year growth by grade level, by child.
Yeah.
Right, so second grade every year should get a little bit better. Whatever the score was last year for that group, we want to see it just keep growing, or at least not, keep growing perpetually, but
Yeah.
just keep on a good, healthy path.
And there's good reports and data that are available in the platforms in NWEA and in Ames Web that will show us growth percentiles, conditional growth. So for a student started at the same spot as another student, or similar spot that another student that scored similarly, how did they grow compared to that student, those students? That is the information that we are looking at most with that growth.
Okay, and the data you're going to look at now, are you seeing, like, is everybody getting a report that's showing, hey, all the kids are in green now, so are you, I assume, dealing with that now?
Yeah, so that's the data digs that we did with teams. I've done something very similar with my team because I wanted this background knowledge to be there when we look at our stuff to see, wow, I got all my kids are in the 90th percentile this year, I guess I'm done. Like that's not how it works necessarily, so thinking about that's good, but let's look at the scores and let's break down, because then you can even take the test itself. This is the overall score. You can take it and look at each section of the test and see this is high, but it's high because the geometry score is really pulling them up. If their numbers operations is on that lower end, and that can be something that we can focus on. Okay, so those things could drive some of those conversations.
Anybody else?
No, I feel like a lot of my questions. But I guess when we talk about like data digs and things like that.
components that were, you know, scores that we're seeing anyhow. And I know that these are just snapshots. I have my personal opinions on, you know, standardized testing and how inefficient it is and sometimes capturing the growth of our students. But when we look at these pieces and we present this information, I mean, I know for a fact I look at student growth just on my individual child's basis. Like, it's great if I understand that we have to be aware of percentile ranges and everything like that and kind of looking at comparisons, but how often are they planning on doing this? I understand that they were updating the data from 2022, you said? Okay. But the other piece, like, didn't you say that some of that data was from 2020? I mean, like, how often does this recalibration and the renorming take place, or is it just on a whim through Pearson and it's just on a whim? Perfect.
Renorming tends to happen about every 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
It's usually not this drastic.
Okay.
The different things that they're saying contribute to the big difference here. Obviously, coming out of COVID, that had changed. People are still playing catch up, and that we see the scores nationwide. And then MAP talks about they changed their assessment slightly and how the algorithm picks questions for the students. And then just general population changes is how they kind of describe those national changes. So that was how MAP described theirs. If you look at AimsWeb, didn't give those, but they also saw similar changes to their literacy norms. So we're thinking that the COVID and the demographic changes are probably pretty big driving factors, even if the AimsWeb test questions and their algorithm didn't change.
Okay.
So yeah, it's happened before, but it's never really this big
This
of a
large
difference
difference, okay.
between the two.
Well, and
And
then,
then for the recalibration, that because of how the high stakes testing's been around since No Child Left Behind.
right.
It's changed a couple of different times. I think I mentioned 2013 as we changed the test. So I think now I don't know how often that's going to happen. So
Okay. And then in relationship, because just to confirm that I heard exactly what you were saying correctly, like when we were looking at that grade 11 and like pretty much either the stagnation or like that tend to have a downward correlation, like in the math area, are we, when they adjusted the scores at our level, at the elementary level and middle school levels, right here, yeah. Are we accounting for how awful that is?
about how our 8th graders have to score at the 69th percentile nationally to be considered proficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are
Only
the
to come
questions
back
that we
and
have
then
to.
not have to do that in
Yeah.
a couple of years?
And they didn't have to do that in 7th grade, and they don't have to do it in 11th grade.
Right.
Yeah, these are the things that we don't know why there's such a big difference in what's considered proficient at each grade level.
Okay.
It's more consistent for ELA.
Yeah.
It's also much lower for ELA, so we don't know why the decision was made for that either.
Interesting. Okay, well, I don't expect you to be in their brains because no one should be there, but, thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna say that
interested to see.
this is all fairly new too, like they're literally just having webinars and all of that the last couple of weeks, so we anticipate as the year goes on, we'll probably learn more.
Anybody else?
I just had one, and this may not be a question that we can answer now, as you're saying that this is more of an evolving process. At this level, again, looking back to that triangle, where we're looking at the children that need intervention, the children that need intensive intervention, and now we're looking at them all as being norm, right? Like we're looking at that as that, yes, they're all proficient and whatnot. Is this in any way putting any of our interventions and allotment for interventions at risk at a district-wide level, because aren't all of these pieces tied into whether a student is eligible for an IEP and all that? I mean, I know there's several pieces that go into that, but if this is one of them, I don't know how highly this one is weighted. Is that at all changing the criterion then?
That was after our interventionists saw this for the first time. They came up and asked me if they still had a job. And the answer, of course, is yes. But the what needs to change is more so our decision making and what it is that we're looking at. And that was the the advice that NWEA gave too. Don't continue to use the same thing that you've done just because you've always done it. Really take a look at it and see, does our decision-making process that we had set up before still make sense with these new norms? Or do we need to change it to be more focused on specific skills or looking at different areas of the test itself to help inform us with that, as opposed to, again, just blanketly saying everybody below this amount will automatically qualify for intervention. So that, as you know, as we kind of said before, the kids' needs are absolutely still there. Nothing has changed from last year to this year in terms of you know, what they were able to do when they left in May and when they got here in September. So it really is just a matter of making sure that we are still able to identify what those needs are and provide that right support. And those are the conversations that we're having district-wide right now to make sure that we can do that.
Pick it up.
And again, maybe this is a question that is more future looking. Do we have the ability to do that? Because many interventions require specific standards. And so now if we're modifying one of those standards, does that put us in jeopardy in some way?
We can definitely update our criteria.
So we have the ability to do
we
that.
decide what that is, right, yeah. So the skills and the strategies and the things that we're teaching aren't really changing. And the materials that we're using to do it aren't gonna be changing a lot. It would just be identifying what those lacking skills and strategies are will have to change and how we have those conversations. Yeah, good question.
Anybody else? Great questions. Thank you. Great job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Barry, you are up. Student enrollment update, please.
This is just a quick snapshot of our enrollment numbers as of September 9th, which was the 6th day of school. There's just a date we can look at if anybody who's late to enroll is enrolled in school. So fairly close to what was budgeted overall. One student off what was budgeted. We are up 12 students from where we were about the same time last year. Yeah, just quick snapshot.
We're all in agreement, right?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Barry? All right, hearing none, let's move on to our committee updates. Thank you. Appreciate it. Our first committee update is from MSSCO. Mr. Roxon, you are representing.
Okay, so, I drafted up a memo and put a bunch of attachments. That goes with.
We're gonna do a meeting update and then we can get into the slides
Yeah.
or your memo.
Well, first of all, fun stuff. The annual reminder that Slowick is our property or the, what do you call it, the Sunrise, yes. So do make arrangements to go visit it. They are already starting to fill up for the 26-27 school year. So, you know, classes, board retreats, whatever, you know, they've really got an awesome, just environment there, you know, some good facilities and you know, really constructive activities for kids. You know, kind of aligning with that play structure, you know, how important all that stuff is and really, you know, building education into activities. So, yeah, and then regarding the you know, the big topic, which is the Articles of Agreement, I don't know what to say, other than I think that, you know, for the majority of my concerns were, or have been, you know, my concerns and that of a group of us have been mostly addressed. So, you know, my big concerns were what has not been adjusted, that there was not, you know, board approval for a lot of specific items, and I don't entirely know what happened behind the scenes, but something clicked. So we're basically, you know, Jody will walk through it, but from a process standpoint, you know, well, I'll say that I've always been open to and wanted, you know, more participation and communication and collaboration between all the member districts and NSSEO. There was always some discussion about how that would materialize, but I never was against that by any stretch. I just wanted to make sure that we had proper roles and participation at the various levels, which, like I said, I do feel like, at least with some of the proposed amendments, we're going to get there. From a scheduling standpoint, we are trying to move forward, or Dr. Schnorr is working to incorporate some of the changes that were listed out in her memo to update the draft. Our official feedback is due tomorrow, so we need to provide, if we want to, I assume we do, but some feedback to NSSEO to inform that redrafting or updating of the articles agreement. And then, ideally, we would like in the next meeting to possibly have something that we can move forward to the districts for ratification. So they are working on that draft. It's got to go to the attorneys. It's, combination of wordsmithing and some process stuff, but I mean, if they get kind of the things in the agreement that they have communicated with the memo and whatnot, I'm pretty good with it. So minus a couple little changes that we'll talk. So
Did you guys discuss any changes at the last meeting or no? The chart is pretty much as is, the one that I shared with the board.
They describe that as a working chart.
Okay.
So, I've seen several versions of that now, where they, one of the chart she'll show you is, here's something, here's what it was, here's what it's going to be, and then going and looking at the language to see how it needed to be adjusted. Because
Well, so the slide deck really is just to kind of consolidate some of the questions and information y'all asked for, and really the collective ask was to kind of look at the pros and cons of the proposed structure changes, and then what questions everyone had related to the changes. So what we need to do is get this list of questions, just like Robert says, questions and proposed changes, so I can get that over to NSSEO by tomorrow, and then hopefully give you all clarity so that as a board, you can guide Robert on next steps for what he should take back to NSSEO. So I think everybody is getting familiar with the current structure, that it is a one-tiered structure with 8 district board members from all the member districts, 1 rep and 1 backup rep should the rep not be able to go. So it kind of operates as like the typical board operates. There are supporting committees. They're not board committees like OMA committees like ours, but there's a student services committee, I would say, which is all the member district special education admin and NSSEO special education admin. I believe Meg sits in on those meetings. And whereas like the superintendent did not used to sit in on those meetings before, but it's mostly student services. There's also a finance committee, and so that has all of the member district CSBOs and student services reps. NSSEO finance or CSBO folks, their student services reps, and I believe you have a governing board member that is there sometimes not, at the committee, the finance committee meetings.
Yeah, it's changed a few times over the years. So because the budget is, in particular, such a collaborative exercise, and so it's more operationally focused. NSSEO up until recently really hasn't focused on capital projects and things outside of just keep the lights on, keep teachers employed, and et cetera, et cetera. But so the budget has been a little bit more of an internal process.
So, yeah, and then new this year has just been the member district superintendents led by Dr. Schnorr, and then sometimes members of her cabinet are there. So that's pretty much the current structure. The proposed structure is really kind of just moving to a 2-tiered governing structure with the governing board remaining as is with the 8 district representative members, and then an operational board which would consist, it shift that superintendent group basically to an operational group. And so part of their role, the majority of their role is making recommendations to the governing board, not on all items that the governing board reviews, but on certain items. There will continue to be supporting committees with student services and finance.
Right, I just have one question
Yeah.
about the supporting. Do the supporting committees report out to both boards or just one?
I believe that was a question of like how do all these groups come together? So, in the new structure, is that kind of what you're saying? Yeah. Currently, they don't really, I mean, maybe the NSSEO rep reports out to the governing board, but there isn't really a formal, report out, structure.
They're working on it. I mean, you know, there's just like inside of in our district, there's, steps that occur in building a budget or really anything that just, can happen in any sort of way, but there's generally kind of a flow to it. The biggest difference to me with this structure, which I think is very much a pro, is that traditionally NSSEO has been, or not traditionally, but at least in the last, 10, 20 years, has been set up to kind of consultatively work with the member districts to intake their needs and then kind of develop the programs based on where their needs were falling. What was lacking was coordination amongst the schools or the districts. So you have maybe the two high school districts, they have different thresholds for their use of NSSEO services. So one district might say, hey, I need help with this group of kids, and the other districts, well, I have a program for that. So they would go to NSSEO, and basically what they couldn't handle, they were pushing to NSSEO. And I think same with the elementary districts, that there's, that hopefully that collaboration amongst the superintendents helps to kind of get the programs at all of our schools a little bit more, well, not a little bit, a lot more aligned, so that, so the kids go in the right spots.
This chart is totally unseeable, so, I had to look at it in your board packet, but this is kind of the chart that has been living for the last couple of weeks. So the most recent updated chart is, more detail in terms of where in the agreements some of these things can be found. And I know, like Donna, you had a lot of questions because some things were deleted in a certain section, and so, I believe they've either come back to life. Robert, is that accurate? Some of the things that were deleted have come back to life, or they are adding language. So I believe that has been rectified over time. That is the most updated one I have of that. And so from that, I'm just gonna hit on some of the gains or the pros and the cons of the change in structure, and Robert and I kind of went over these, so if you have anything to add, Robert, or if anything's changed in the last few weeks. I mean, pretty much the gains is just really like this increase of collaboration and input from the member district leadership. I think you could say like organization of the flow of communication as well, as we work out how that is gonna look. The strengthening of trust between NSSEO and member districts, and also having a platform to talk about things that wasn't there before. Resolving some governance issues to be able to continue to move forward. Focusing on the final stages of the strategic plan for NSSEO. Improving efficiency with the resources. I think this collaboration and the planning ahead can really start to be more efficient with the way the money is sometimes spent or resources are allocated. And then just kind of all of us working towards the long-term goals of NSSEO and hopefully identify some roadblocks on the front end rather than reacting on the back end. Some of the losses or the cons of the structure that, when you have more people and more tiers, it does slow down decision making. And so we anticipate that could be an obstacle to work through. Potential challenges around power dynamics with dual, I'm calling it silos because they don't connect. So you have two silos of leadership. So I could see that power dynamic might continue to be something we need to work through.
I will say to that though, I mean, I do appreciate that the superintendent's council meeting was, at least recorded and available for some people to attend. That was really good, I think, for a lot of people, but I'll say personally, it was really good for me, because part of my issue with this has been, I don't know where they want to take things. All right, so you got this group of superintendents, present company accepted, is trying to, do, they're well-intentioned to move the organization forward, but we're not privy to those conversations. So it was, not quite understanding or having a certainty to their goals. And, listening in on that meeting, it was very productive and supportive. It was, productive and supportive doesn't mean that you just bow to whatever an SSEO needs. It means that you're, critically working through things and making incremental improvements.
So, I think a potential con could be, if we have difference of opinions at the different levels, just to keep focused on being cohesive and being unified. And then again, like, we have a lot of straight A, type A personalities across both boards, and so there's going to be conflicting interests and different opinions. So those were the pros and cons.
I don't know so much about that. I have to say, after watching that meeting, I feel a lot better. I really do feel a lot better.
There's just one meeting, Robert.
I swear to God, I thought some part of me thought you guys were behind closed doors collaborating on how to blow it up. I don't know. Well, my thoughts, I knew that's not what was going on. But, one simple example was that we had to reduce a summer school or ESY by a week this past year because of the construction curve. And NSSEO has more ESY time than any of our home districts. They have about 90 to 100 hours. And as a parent, I was like, oh my gosh, and not just that, but these are the kids that need that help the most. And these are the kids that don't have the same options to go to summer camp. You send a kid that goes to NSSEO to summer camp, they require more supports. It snowballs, right? And that was one of my concerns, is that was just on the docket to be taken away. And you know what? Instead, behind the scenes, they were doing a proper analysis of was this worth it? And the answer came back yes. And even if it didn't come back, it didn't start with let's get rid of it. It started with do we need it, which is the right place to start. So, sorry, I'm trying to keep this short.
These were some of the questions raised by the board. And I think I saw an updated document in the board book that might have hit on some of these. So I'm not going to read them to everyone, but if there's any that anyone would like to pull off the table, then please let me know. Or if you're comfortable with your question and the answer you received, please let me know, and I will not forward that.
Yeah, I think between Jody and I can answer every one of these with a pretty confident we've got it in the right spot now, or at least it's pointed in the right direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the only thing that I still had, my other question was answered about the outliers, because it's pretty much pros and cons, and then what types of events would possibly really derail this structure. But I'm still sticking with how the information will flow, and I know that we just discussed it, so I would love for that whether it's a formal process, because we want to make sure that all the member districts are getting the same information distributed by their board reps.
I think that's a little complex, because each board is entitled to do things how they want to do it. So,
but the information coming out from those meetings, they can talk about it how they want, but the information should be the exact same coming out of those meetings. Correct, from NSSEO. I all of the NSSEO should have, at those meetings, something should be prepared where it can be given out to the board representative. And then come back, and if the board representative wants to put it in board book or whatever, but the same information should be going to each one of the member districts.
I think that they do a communication, like a board update. It's usually, it's not as detail orientated from a technical standpoint.
Right.
It's more a say, slightly marketing almost.
Yeah, I feel like some of it's just not fluff, but I mean, like it is.
It
Yeah,
is.
I mean, it's announcing events and things like that, but it's not talking about board business necessarily in the depth that we would need.
Yeah, and I will say, I've been asking for something like that, because I would like more of a technical 1 or 2 pager that kind of just talks through the more business oriented topics. Haven't gotten that yet, but I mean, I'm hopeful to get that. You know, right now, Joey's suggestion, I very much like, is a standardized memo to at least get something out, but I'm still not like filling out like blanks or something. Like, it's still a lot up to me to communicate what.
Yeah, I think that the thing is, and what I've seen in this process, sitting on silence, and that you guys are in the meetings, it's like a game of like 16 telephones going off, and no one has it. And so that's fine. You'll offer context to us to advise us on how we want direction and vote. But even when they presented the financials last year, it's their job to we are their constituents or their business. It's their job to effectively communicate these issues back to the boards. It's not, and your memo is great, but that you're doing that, and I know other members
No, I agree with that.
aren't. So it's like a marketing and communications issue that I think they need to figure out. If we're not having 2 operating committees, two things, that's double their, that's the, like.
Yes and no. So one of the big changes that they made here is that the operations board can effectively make decisions, but those decisions have to then be packaged up and presented to the governing board for approval. So
They
that
can make recommendations.
yes, but
then
then
you guys make the decision.
but like just how we function, right? I mean, we normally, 90+% of the time, we're, relying on Dr. Megerly to make good recommendations that we can approve. And we might poke at it a little bit, but for the most part, it's cooperative, it's informed both ways. And I've kind of looked at this whole thing since the beginning, is the superintendents are kind of joining like an ad hoc expanded cabinet, to participate in the development of some of the operational strategies and some of the longer term strategies to inform the NSSEO administration, of their direction, and quite frankly, so that they get on the same page, that the school districts get on the same page. So I think I can't control right now, like what specifically comes out of NSSEO from a operations or a governing board meeting. From the operations meeting, it will be pretty buttoned up because it's got to go to the governing board meeting, and then from there, what you're asking for is more like technical summary. It sounds like.
Well,
Beyond-
maybe that could go into the proposal section, not that it's gonna go into the articles of agreement, but maybe that could be an outcome of like, okay, this isn't gonna go in the articles of agreement, but we need some sort of standardized communication flow.
Well, the only part that I can really see in the articles of agreement is distributing the information, but that's not really the governance. I mean, piece, like it should be going back to the superintendents, which then should then, again, like I said, filter. The information should be flowing between the operational board and the governance board. But I think the hiccup that had me asking this question was when we have people present, like how Bill, came up and he gave us information, and then we were able to really understand and kind of get a good grasp on it. If we're skipping over those things and we don't have that information from NSSEO that was discussed by the operations committee with the governance board, then we're still kind of in the dark, and then that not only puts a ton of pressure on you to make sure that you cover every single thing, but it's also, again, like the telephone piece, like we talk about pieces that we think might be important here.
Well,
A lot of it is subjective.
Yeah, and part of the challenge really is that each member board is going to have to make their own determination to some degree how they handle it. So like some boards might choose to get involved in every single situation or every single vote and go through the I mean, theoretically, they could go through the agenda, I'm just giving you the range, right?
Yeah.
To
No,
another
I-
side
yeah.
where it's, like, it's delegated.
No, and I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about us taking action, I'm talking about us just being informed members of what we have. So if they have one document, again, I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic, so we
That's all right.
we
I
should
mean, I
just
think we'll
refocus,
figure it
but.
out. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we're even kind of struggling is that
Well, I
we
think
don't
it's
know
like
what
a-
our meetings are gonna look like yet. But I'm imagining that they are we have to be ahead of their meeting. So I could see our NSSEO committee update could be more of the front loading instead of the back loading. And so we've already talked months ago about agreeing that information will flow to this board and you will guide Robert. So I think we're all under that same understanding and kind of just tweaking out if it's coming from me, or if it's coming from Robert, or if it's a joint piece. Yeah, I think it's gonna take some time to get the cadence down.
I just think that it should live, some responsibility should live with the NSSEO team in the same way that like we expect a Friday update from you, or like we have communication expectations for our board and for ours, like how we function, and that's what's missing.
Yeah, I want to be clear, I hear you both loud and clear, and I think we will work those things out. This document doesn't do that. Okay, so this document is gonna define what the communication,
Yeah.
things like that presentation, that budgetary presentation, like that was like the first one that had been done in years. So it was kind of like, the beta version of what I hope to see in years is that progression and growth in that, just like with the communication. I expect to see it progress, grow, mature, get standardized, and then we got a smooth running process. But we're definitely in the, forming that structure to get it done, and I think that's what this does, and that's what, so, it changes and that route.
Okay.
Keep going?
Are there any other questions, again, to add, to get clarification? Tomorrow's the deadline, so are we good on this? Yeah?
On the chart,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed on the very far right-hand side, there is wording that says add specific language, but I don't know what that specific language is.
Yes,
So are we going to see
yes, so,
before it gets approved?
so the timeline has shifted back slightly
Yeah.
because there needs to be time, I think Robert had mentioned that, time to get it to the attorney, to get all these questions, proposals to the attorney, and get that language added so that we can still have time to review it.
Yes.
So I'm not exactly sure what the turnaround time will be, but we were talking about potentially voting in November. I don't really see that happening until December, because if we get that information, we may want to talk about it or review it in November.
Well, and the plan is right now is to take the kind of the feedback that's been presented right now, create a draft that is ready for the November 5th NSSEO board meeting, in which ideally we approve to send to the member districts for ratification.
I don't know if we'll be ready for that by November.
I don't either, but it's a possibility.
Because that'll be the first time we're reviewing all the changes
Well-
and knowing what, and I mean, if the team is fine reviewing all of that and being ready for a vote.
Well, and I put down here,
Possibly could, but.
in terms of the follow-up, I mean, the question is between now and maybe a final-ish draft that we still have to ratify. To be clear, we still have to vote and ratify as a board to be okay with this. But we do have to, the NSSEO board might get a finalized draft that goes before another draft in early November, which we can, at that point, and I said, if it's, pre-buttoned up, we could just, summarize some feedback. We could call a committee of the whole to try to, so part of it too now is that we've been screwing around with this since February. So now that we're finally in agreement with this, now, and myself too, because I've been pushing back on this, because it's now in a position where it's okay to move forward and in my opinion, for the most part, we can, I want to move it along. Does that make sense?
I do too. So on the change proposals, the next slide.
Yeah.
I really have a problem with the proposal of number one.
Okay,
Clearly state that recommendations by the operating board will be approved. No, 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 no. They may
oh,
be
okay,
approved.
yes, gotcha,
No
yes,
way will
Yeah.
the may be approved by the governor.
gotcha. The meat of that was just to make it clear
Yes.
that, yes, okay.
And I know that
Yes.
you're used to writing contracts and
No,
doing
no,
other stuff.
no,
and
you're
that's-
right.
So I looked at that, but I'm on the other end, looking at, no, may.
Yeah, and my,
Okay.
and my general understanding is that whatever goes before the governing board would kind of mirror what we do in a typical district. You know, so there's definitely decisions Jody makes that we don't need to approve, right?
Yeah, and I
But
don't
there's-
wanna talk about everything in this, as
No,
so.
and I don't either, quite frankly, so, but I do want the important stuff, which I think now is in that column, to go through the governing board.
So these were the change proposals that I got from the team, so really it's just clearly stating that whole recommendation piece, cause there was a paragraph in there that's not so clear. Defining a specific frequency in which the articles will be reviewed, so I just threw in a proposal there, after the first year and then every 4 years after, question mark, what is the board comfortable proposing? That works?
I don't care.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
2 or 4, whatever you
we'll see.
They're gonna know
Yes.
that.
And then the modify the amendments, and I don't know if you talked about this, but right now, it says in there that it has to be passed by the operating board before it can go to the governing board. So I think something a little bit more balanced, I don't care if it's the elected board, meaning the governing board, or if you take the majority of both of the boards voting as a whole.
Well, ultimately, any amendment to the Articles of Agreement must be re-ratified by the member districts. So,
That's what it says now.
you know, even going forward, because
Okay.
it-
I thought that was a section you didn't like, because
No.
it said it had to be initiated by the operating board.
that I did not like that part.
Okay,
So the requests for edits can come from anywhere. So the operations board can request an edit, but the way it was written is that the governing board couldn't say, well, we don't like this, and we want it this way, and the operating board could say, well, we have to be the ones that recommend the modifications. So if it didn't clear the operations board, the governing board wouldn't have it.
okay, so I'm
So-
striking number 3?
No,
Oh,
No, what do you,
I
I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but what I think he's saying is basically the governing board has the final say.
yes, and by our, yes, and we're
The
allowed to
operating
initiate
board can
changes to it.
Propose it, you know, like go back to that first one, may recommend, will recommend things, and it may be approved.
A lot of that agreement, if you switch out the word recommend for approve, just, approved for recommended, cleaned it up. So like an amendment, they can recommend,
But it doesn't mean it's gonna get approved.
doesn't mean it's going to approve, but also it means that, yeah.
okay,
The
because the
governing
last
board's
version
holding.
we looked at said that the operating board was the one that could open up the articles of agreement. Has that changed?
In the current draft now.
Are they
So
the
you're
only ones?
okay with that, or you want operating board change?
I still want this to just
Okay,
be clear that the governing board, and by extension the member districts, can choose to amend the articles however they see fit.
So they can, so what she's asking is both boards can open up and ask for an amendment.
Yes, exactly.
okay,
There you go.
Okay.
If it just says it can come from anywhere, that's fine.
okay.
And the governing board, by permission of the member boards, approves it, then I'm fine. It just was, the way I said it was, it was like it was gate capped in the,
Yeah.
in the agreement. It said
I
they
agree.
had to do it first and then.
Yes, I agree. I don't like that either. No, I don't, I mean, I think it should
Sorry,
be.
I've been reading this
even
damn thing
tiered.
for 10 months, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alright, so you
Okay.
feel good about it?
Okay. So yeah, next steps. I will share this. They're going to re-edit. It will come back to our November 11th meeting.
So again, if you guys are able to vote at the November 11th meeting after reviewing that in the board packet, we can put it on for action, info action. If you need more time, we'll just vote no and then put it on another meeting. Work?
And like I said, I really want to, whatever we can do to help get to a yes at this point would be helpful to everybody.
Okay.
From the guy that's been saying no for
I was just gonna say, never thought of it.
you just needed, you needed like 6 bullet points changed, and all of it went away.
Good thing we're sitting down.
Oh man, you have no idea. That's why I said I opened up the memo with, I'm mostly happy.
All right, operations committee, I'm sorry, that's enough, or that's it from?
I hope so.
You know what I meant. You know what I meant. Is that all you have for us, Mr. Ryan? Excellent, thank you. Appreciate everyone's collaboration, and I agree, I would look forward to this.
One more
Yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Megerly, for this whole board for putting up with me, Dr. Schnorr for refereeing all of this, and even the superintendents for working this out. I put it, democracy is messy sometimes, and sometimes it takes 9 or 10 months to get something simple done. It just is. So no hard feelings, but thank you to everybody for your time.
You're good. All right, next up is the operations committee. Mrs. Fisker, you are our chair. Welcome to the chair.
Thank you. Operations committee had a very efficient meeting, was not 9 minutes long. We talked about update on solar panels. They are moving along slow and steady as the seasons change. Lots of waiting on village approval, ComEd, things like that, but still in a good spot. Hopefully we get installed by the end of the year. Hopefully it's the end of 2025, not the end of this week. We also reviewed kind of our current facility expenditures, so the budget of how much we've spent for Euclid and Indian Grove and what we have left over. Mr. Barry, you want to give a quick update on that?
I'd be happy to. We're almost spent all of our the expected bid amounts for Euclid. We are about $1 million short of what we expected to spend, and we were able to save about $400,000 in our allowance so far. And then Indian Grove, we still have bills coming in from the end of summer, and the contractors finalizing some of those bills. We also, to this point, have saved over $400,000 in our allowance, and then all in all, from what we expected to spend with Indian Grove when I first started about 1.5 years ago, we are well below expectations and expect to come in below budget. But all in all, between the two projects, we spent just under $37 million.
And Lewis isn't here to hear that.
Yeah.
Man.
And we're under budget.
Budget on time. We also talked about plans for thoughts for future district facility improvements. And came to kind of a to-do list of putting together an overview of what needs to be done at every school, giving them a ranking of must do, would be nice to have, and also looking at future, that would include Prairie Trails, Indian Grove, Euclid, and Prairie Trails. And then last but not least, it was great, we got a report on our current vehicles and timeline and life of them. I think we'll be looking at replacing, or at least looking at the cost to replace one of the trucks. Also looking at more efficient ways to buy salt and distribute the salt to parking lots, if we bought a new vehicle. Possibly buying salt from one of the village or township centers.
Thank you. All right, next up is the 2025 IASB delegate report. Ms. Dean Key, you are our representative.
So, we just
presentations to ensure that, we're able to do my job efficiently, but I will be seeking consensus on how to vote for each of the resolutions and amendments on our November 11th board meeting. So my assumption it will be handled very similar to last time. The Google form will tell us if we're in consensus and anything that we are not in consensus, we will then discuss at the November 11th board meeting, and then I'll garner that information to take with me to vote on the 22nd. Additionally, I'll be looking for information and feedback and guidance on how to cast a district vote for the delegate assembly. The proposed slate officers are Tracy Sayre, she's the IAFB vice president right now, moving her to president. And then, and I know I'm going to say this wrong, Alva Kreitzer, thank you, who I believe is on 214, so many of us are familiar with her, for vice president. So very similarly, I will ask for your guidance on how to cast the district vote at the delegate assembly also on the 22nd. And I'll be asking for that information at our board meeting on the 11th.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for the process? Alright, hearing none, we'll move on to the North Cook Division dinner meeting. Mrs. Pfister, you are our governing board representative.
Okay, we are scheduled to vote on the 2025 North Cook officer slate. There's an election at the North Cook Division dinner meeting in a couple of weeks, October 22nd. So I did look into this because my first time, I guess, remembering doing this, but their North Cook officers, except the secretary, have a 2-year term, so we're going every 2 years. They are nominated by a division nominating committee comprised of 3 school board members from active member school boards, appointed by the chair, and they present a slate of officers to the governing board. Additional nominations can be made from the floor, providing the nominee is present and consents to their nomination. So the proposed slate of officers in the board book, I can review those if you want. I have to vote, so I think this is an action item, yes or no, if you want me to vote. My only question, one question I have is, so additional nominees are made from the floor. How, maybe Mrs. Johnson has some context, how does a nominee, or how does a rep vote on nominations from the floor if I'm now getting consensus here on the slate? If the slate was to get voted down on the nominations from the floor, how do our reps vote without consensus from their boards?
What usually happens is everyone is sitting at their tables. They present the slate. All those in favor say aye. And you are the person who says aye or nay. And if she says aye, and if she says anyone nay, you say nay. Okay, too bad.
Okay.
That wasn't her question.
No, she
So if there's nominees from the floor,
If it's all
And we-
nays,
Oh, if it's
and they
all
take a
nays.
nominee from the floor.
well, they could take a nominee from the floor.
Before the
Anyway.
vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously, we are not aware of
We're not aware of who those nominees from the floor may be, so how can we take that into consensus now?
We're not really delegating any authority to them.
Yeah.
Like this is I'm sorry, this has always bugged me. They organize a dinner and a presenter like once a month. Right? We have a governing board associated with it. Was there something else that they're doing?
Yeah, they help out with the whole Triple I conference.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
and
why
besides
did-
for that, I feel
The
like they
thing
should
is,
be
in all the years that I've been going, 36 years, there's never been a slate from the floor, there's never been a person from the floor.
Yeah, I don't know if I could
One
vote. I
person.
don't care.
It's almost, that's what I mean, it's a done,
It
it's
doesn't do
basically a done
anything.
deal.
I do think these individuals that are on this board, just to point this out, I think that they hold certain influence when working with other individuals with IASB that do influence policy and the policy that we get and the policies that come out and things that are implemented. So when we say that like it doesn't matter, I don't know if that's actually true. I just think that we don't necessarily see the inner workings of how these people influence specific items within policy
And
at a different level, just to let you know. I don't think it's as innocent as we think. It's not just setting up dinners and playing nice at the triple I. Like there are things that are being influenced.
Sure, they
also
help determine the resolution.
legislators.
Yeah, maybe.
They also interact with the legislators.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say, like,
They work hand in hand with EdRed.
Right.
They work with a lot of different groups that then influence policy.
And it's these people on the slate that have over the years, like Elva's been around as long as I have, over the 30-some years. She has a wonderful resource. She has a lot of connections with the legislators. So that's probably one of the reasons they moved, they said, okay.
Okay, so is it like a forum so that they can host legislators to talk to them? I mean, it's kind of what this is it's kind of like a social, I can't figure out the formal structure of why that matters.
So getting back to the original question, Becky, you're asking,
Well,
where your concern comes in is that if they nominate someone, should they nominate someone from the floor, what guidance are we giving?
So does Becky just have to make a choice on her own and just go like, I hope the board agrees with this?
I feel
Okay.
Kim will have to do the same thing that delegate assembly. We don't know, she won't know going into it whether there's gonna be a nominee from the floor. And I can tell you, the last two that I've met, the nominees from the floor.
So at that point, do we get discretion to act in what we feel is appropriate?
I mean, at least at this juncture, we'll all be acting Northbrook, or most of us will be acting Northbrook dinner. We can give you a thumbs up or thumbs down if you ask real quick. I mean, we're all right there.
Okay, well, in that case, can I get a yay or nay on the current slate?
So let me jump in.
Or any comments or questions?
I've had multiple conversations with both Alva Kreitzer and Bill Harrison. Their objective to get districts that have not been attending the Northbrook dinner or Triple I and get them more involved in Northbrook activities. That's how they chose some of these slate members, which in my opinion is not how you choose slate members. So I'm asking that we vote down the slate. And that's how I would vote. My name is Calvin Wolf. Anybody else?
No, you're entitled to your opinion.
Okay.
Do you think that is, I mean, I was like, how are these not, I mean, it's kind of nebulous, like how their states picked, like on my
Well, so they put out an email to all of us when
Right,
they
but the
knew that they were.
nominating committee, I guess, is comprised of 3 school boards that the current slate appoints.
Correct.
Correct.
So
It's
it's
all, you're coming around.
Yeah. Like, but one of their missions is to encourage all school boards within the division to become active members of IASB. So maybe that they're
I mean, I'm fine with them trying to get them to be active members, but I wouldn't throw them all of a sudden in the slate of officers. You're running before you're walking.
And I will add, I have 2 problems with this Northbrook dinner. One of them is that it's the dinner subsidized by the districts. That we're, the district's paying for our meal. Don't love that. The second thing is every time I go there, there's like half of the program is giving each other awards, and I just can't handle that. So get some feedback on how to get more involved. Like I'm happy to get together and collaborate and do stuff, but I don't like the meal component of it, and asking the member district to pay for it. The awards have got to get settled out.
That's not gonna be part of the motion, I'm just
Well, I'm just saying back to the people you're talking to, because that's.
Okay, I would like to say that, Bill, I understand you saying that the people, they want more people, and so they're putting them on the slate. But there is a form they have to fill out, because I was approached, to be honest with you. There's a form you have to fill out, there's an interview you go through.
There's not an interview. You fill out the form,
Right.
the form is submitted, and then the people are selected. You're not interviewed.
Okay, well, I was told I would be, they would call and ask a few questions. But nonetheless, it's not like they just said, oh, Matthew Doubleday, let's take him. He had to fill out a form, and I'm sure other people, that all these people that say new to the slate here, they all filled out a form, they know what the qualifications are and all this. And I'm trusting that all the years that we've been going, that we've been part of the IASB dinner meetings and the ISB organization, I trust them.
I'm glad you do. I don't.
Okay.
I will say the presentation's always been pretty
Yes.
Again, that's not on the motion. So, does anybody have any other comments? Okay, may I entertain a motion and a second to direct Mrs. Fisberg to vote at the October 22nd, 2025 division meeting for the 2025 North Cook election proposed slate of officers. The slate of officers are Director Albert Kreitzer, District 214, the Chair is Bill Harrison from District 21, the Vice Chair, Mark Chow from Skokie, District 69, the Resolutions Chair, Wenda Hunt from Palatine, District 15, Director at Large, Pat Savage Williams out of Evanston, District 202, Director at Large, Matthew Doubleday from Park Ridge, Sniles, School District 64, Director at Large, Peter Glocke from Glenbrook, District 225, and Director at Large, Shannon Yateman, and what district is off?
Sorry, question about the motion.
Yes.
It says it's just directing me to vote, but it's not telling me which direction.
Well, that's what we're going to,
No,
We're
the
gonna
motion is to direct me to vote, and so if you say yes, it directs me to vote, but not which way to go.
Oh, I see. So would you like to edit it to say to vote
To
for
approve,
or
okay.
to approve?
so the motion and second is to approve the slate of officers that I just read out. How's that?
All right, I'm adding to vote to approve the following slate of officers at the October 22nd.
Correct. Would you like me to reread it, or are we okay?
We have to vote to amend the action.
No, because
No, we didn't get it.
we haven't
We didn't.
didn't do an action yet.
Because we didn't get a motion and a second to the amendment, or to the motion, we're gonna have to.
We had to vote to amend the.
But we didn't get a motion and a
Only
second
if we have the
for it.
motion already.
Can you please call roll? Unless anybody have any questions?
We have to make that.
I'm sorry, yes.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Bianchini, second by Johnson. Could you please call roll? Does anybody have any other comments or questions before we call roll? Hearing none, could you please call roll?
I sure can. God bless you. Pfister.
Yes.
Friedland, no. Grimpy,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Ronstadt,
Abstain.
is there additional information that you need?
John, please keep it.
That's it. That's it.
Was that a Thailand?
Correct. Or no, sorry, no, it's not. I mean, the motion still carries. I'm just confused by the button that now says abstain with conflict. I'm just going to select it. Okay. But you have no conflict, just, it's.
I don't, no opinion.
And then it goes to the majority, which is yes.
Perfect. I'm just,
Don't care.
I'm sorry, this is a new button.
No problem, motion carried.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments. Next up is the president's report, that's me. We've got a bunch of stuff on the calendar. Pizza and game night at Indian Grove is on the 17th at 5 o'clock. Brewing with the board will be on the 21st at the Mount Prospect Library. The time is still to be determined. We have our first kickoff concert series at the middle school. That's on the 21st as well at 6:30. The RTMS Fall Bash will be on the 14th. Sorry, sticking around a little bit. That's at 6:30. No.
24th.
All right, let's try this again. The RTMS Fall Bash is on the 24th at 6:30 p.m. At IG, we've got Donuts with Grown-Ups on the 14th and 15th, both at 7:45 a.m. We have our first round of parent-teacher conferences on the November 6th, which then leads us to a non-attendance day on the 7th. And then a couple dates to note for the board. We have a finance committee meeting on the 11th, on November 11th at 6 p.m. at the middle school. Our next meeting will follow that at 6:30 p.m. also at the middle school. And then on a side note, the village has the Shining Star Gala, which is the first Saturday of February. And this year they have kicked off a nomination for favorite teacher. So students are encouraged, anyone's encouraged to nominate your favorite teacher. Hopefully District 26 floods the nominations. I would love to see that. And more information is on the village website. And information is also going to be in the district newsletter for October. And that's the president's report. Next up is the superintendent report. Dr. Megley, you have the floor.
Well, I knew we had 3 long presentations tonight, so I wasn't going to do a report, but then I had to. So really, I just want to talk about that Friday is going to be the launch of our strategic plan survey. So it's been a while in the making, and really more editing, and then making sure the edits work. So that will be coming out on Friday in our district newsletter, and so we're going to start picking off different groups. Basically, we're going to try to get the staff. We have a late start on Thursday, and Alicia's doing a couple of presentations, so we're going to try to start working on the staff. Obviously, the newsletter will go out to parents and families. We have a postcard that is going to be mailed to the residents, and so the target group there is obviously residents. We can hit parents there, and then we're hoping to get former student feedback in that as well. So as we go through the next couple of weeks with different district events and different PTC meetings and things like that, we're hoping to continue to spread the word. I have some goals that I might just keep for myself. I have some target numbers. Is that good marketing, Becky? Yeah. So some target numbers that I'm hoping to get, but it'll stay open for about a month and close right up before Thanksgiving. So then we can analyze. So I'm so excited. And that's it.
All right. For one of our policies regarding emails from the community, we did have an email from a parent that was taken care of. That has been handled. We did have a FOIA request that was turned in. A paper copy was turned in. It was not submitted electronically. That has been worked on, but it has not been picked up. So that's kind of done, but they got to come in here. Future topics. Does anybody have a future topic for consideration?
I know with like the strategic plan and other items in review, I was curious if we had made a board statement about equity and our drive and purpose there, and it is still out on our site, with on the board's page. And so I was curious if people would want to review that, any edits or any changes. Obviously, like we did that, I think, pre-COVID, which not necessarily that equity, that vision of equity has changed, but just I was curious if anyone wanted to review it, update it, or just take a look at it and see if it's still holding its same purpose and upholding the standards and vision that we have for the district.
I don't know if you're asking the board or if you're asking everyone.
Kind of, yes.
My plan was to come back together with our group to analyze the data that we get back from the strategic plan survey. So it might not be a bad thing to do a crosswalk between the information we're getting back from the community and what's existing there. And I would ask the board again if they wanted to participate, similar to with Donna and Becky participating in the data retreat. I could do the same.
The equity statement is from June, or at least was approved in June 2022, so maybe that would be
And that was pre-COVID.
3 years, it would be this June. Well, this is what it says approved.
Yeah, no, it's dated, okay.
Dated, I don't remember the dates.
We might have started earlier, honestly, we might have started earlier, like, piecing it together, but when it was like, oh, no, not 3 years earlier, no, I know, guys, I was way off on my time frame. But either way, just, to make sure that it still holds true to the values that we want to, you know, it's like show to our community, so.
Are you okay with Dr. Beverly attacking it
I am
that way, or do you want
definitely,
us
and if we can revisit it at a later time after that. I just meant because like it's such perfect timing with that strategic plan update, so.
Anybody else? Future topic. All right, hearing none, I hereby entertain a motion and a second to adjourn at 9:33.
Second.
Johnson was the motion and Key was the second. Please call roll.
Griffey,
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Friedland, yes. Lorenzen,
Yes.
Bianchi, yes. And Fisher.
Yes.
We're adjourned. We'll see you at November 11th.